Amelia Vance sighed, her fingers tracing the worn fabric of Ben's old uniform. Tucked deep in a forgotten pocket of the dusty box, a small, intricate key glinted, a silent question from her meticulously organized late husband. What forgotten secret did her husband hide in plain sight? The Northwood Police Precinct basement was a sterile, echoing maze under cold fluorescent lights. Amelia, clutching the mysterious key, was quickly dismissed by a bored desk sergeant when she inquired about old evidence lockers. "Some things are just meant to stay buried, ma'am," he'd muttered. Just as despair settled, a smooth voice cut through the hum. "Amelia, my dear, still thinking about Ben?" Captain Elias Thorne emerged from the shadows, his smile too perfect, his condolences dripping with an unsettling familiarity. "Such a loss. We all miss him." His hand on her arm lingered, a chill seeping through her coat. The captain's kindness felt like a warning. Back in her cramped apartment, Amelia spread the key on the kitchen table, its dull metal catching the dim light. Marcus, her teenage son, entered, his eyes still heavy from studying. "What's that, Mom?" he asked, curiosity replacing weariness. Amelia explained, feeling a flicker of hope. He picked it up, his brow furrowing in thought. "Ma, looks like an old evidence locker key. They used these in precincts before digital systems." Amelia's breath hitched. Ben, ever the meticulous planner, wouldn't leave a random key. Her son's unexpected knowledge held the first clue. Driven by Marcus's insight and a gnawing suspicion, Amelia returned to the precinct after hours. The basement, now mostly deserted, felt colder, more ominous. Cobwebs draped across old pipes, and a single flickering bulb cast long, dancing shadows. Ben had always been so open, yet this key, this mystery, spoke of a secret he couldn't share. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of fear and determination. She found them then, a forgotten row of heavy steel lockers, pushed into a dusty corner. One, number 2847, had a lock identical to the key in her trembling hand. What secret was hidden in the darkest corner of the station? The lock clicked with a soft metallic sigh, a sound that resonated deep within Amelia's chest. She pulled open the heavy door. Inside, nestled alone in the cavernous space, was a single, worn manila folder. No label, no case number, just a plain, unassuming file. It felt heavy, weighted with unspoken stories. Her fingers, still trembling, reached for it, a sense of reverence washing over her. This was Ben, his last secret. She pulled it out, the paper rough against her skin, and opened it. Inside, the first page held a familiar scrawl. Ben's distinctive, neat handwriting, a detailed but seemingly routine police report. His dedication, his unwavering commitment to justice, even in death, seemed to emanate from the page. This wasn't just a file. It was a piece of him, left for her to find, a torch passed in the dark. Her husband's final secret was now in her hands. Amelia's cramped apartment was quiet, the city's late-night hum a distant lullaby. Marcus was asleep, but sleep felt a million miles away for her. The manila file, Ben's last tangible link to his life as a cop, lay open on the kitchen table. She'd spent hours poring over the routine reports, witness statements, incident logs, standard police procedure. Nothing felt out of place. Nothing hinted at the profound secret she suspected. Then, tucked between two faded evidence photos of a crime scene she didn't recognize, she found it. A single, unmarked photograph. It was a headshot of a young black woman, perhaps in her late 20s, her eyes wide and a slight, nervous smile playing on her lips. Amelia's heart gave a strange flutter. This wasn't standard. Why was it here? This woman wasn't part of any report in the file. Her face, though unfamiliar, held a solemn beauty. A forgotten face. A hidden story. The next morning, the photo became Amelia's obsession. Marcus, ever the quiet observer, found her staring at it over breakfast. "Mom? What's that?" he asked, his eyes immediately drawn to the image. Amelia explained her discovery, her voice tinged with a growing unease. Marcus, with his innate knack for technology, took the photo. "Let me try something," he mumbled, already at his laptop. He snapped a quick picture with his phone, uploaded it, and with a few clicks and keystrokes, launched a reverse image search across old news archives. The screen flickered, then burst with results. Jennifer Hayes. Marcus read aloud, his voice dropping as he scrolled. Missing person 5 years ago. Key witness in the city's biggest corruption trial against... Wait, it says. Prominent city officials. Amelia leaned closer, a cold dread seeping into her bones. Jennifer Hayes hadn't just gone missing. She'd vanished. Her testimony could have brought down powerful people. The missing witness wasn't just missing. She was a ghost in the system, a victim silenced. Back to the file, Amelia's fingers trembled as she re-examined every page. Ben wouldn't have included Jennifer's photo without reason. He was meticulous, precise. Now, armed with the knowledge of Jennifer Hayes, Amelia saw things she'd missed before. Tucked into the margins, almost invisible, were tiny coded notes in Ben's distinct handwriting. A circled date, a question mark next to a seemingly innocuous police report, an underlined phrase, asterisk alibi too clean. He'd been investigating. He'd seen the inconsistencies, felt the cold hand of a cover-up. Ben hadn't just collected a file. He'd started building a counter-narrative, a silent struggle against forces he couldn't openly fight. Her husband, the man who'd taught her the importance of speaking truth to power, had been fighting a lonely battle in the shadows. His integrity, even in death, burned like a quiet flame within the dusty pages. Her husband's secret code revealed a dangerous truth. Amelia ran her fingers along the spine of the manila folder. It felt thick, too thick for just paper. Ben's notes, his photo, the subtle weight of something hidden. A surge of intense anticipation, laced with a prickle of apprehension, shot through her. Slowly, carefully, she began to pry at the laminated edge. The glue, old and brittle, gave way with a faint crackle. A small, hidden compartment, barely wide enough for her finger, opened within the file's spine. It was ingenious, concealed in plain sight. Her breath hitched. The file held more than just papers. It held a secret within a secret. Inside the compartment lay a small, leather-bound ledger. Not a police notebook, but something personal, clandestine. Amelia's hands shook as she opened it. The pages were filled with meticulous entries, dates, amounts, and names. Names of local judges, city council members, zoning commissioners, and repeatedly, chillingly, a familiar name jumped out at her. Thorne. Captain Elias Thorne. The man who had offered his condolences with a smile that felt like a warning. The man who had overseen Ben's funeral arrangements. The ledger detailed bribes, payoffs, quid pro quo arrangements, all linked to the very corruption trial Jennifer Hayes was supposed to testify in. Amelia gasped, a choked sound of disbelief and horror. This wasn't just corruption. This was a meticulously documented web, a spider's lair woven into the very fabric of the city. The truth was worse than she could ever imagine. Her husband was murdered. The small, leather-bound ledger lay open on Amelia's kitchen table, its meticulous script a stark contrast to the chaos it now unleashed in her mind. Her fingers, usually so steady holding chalk in a classroom, traced the familiar name, though, Thorne. Not just once, but repeatedly. Dates, amounts, coded notes, all aligning with public records of Captain Elias Thorne's movements and sudden acquisitions. The new boat, the renovated home in the affluent district, the back, anonymous, donations to certain city campaigns. It wasn't just a captain involved in corruption. He was the architect of it, the man who had offered Amelia those saccharine condolences in the precinct basement. His smile too wide, his eyes too cold, was the same man Ben had been hunting, and the same man who, she now knew with a cold, terrifying certainty, had silenced him. A wave of fury, sharp and icy, washed over her. Not just for Ben, but for Jennifer Hayes, for every innocent life crushed by Thorne's greed. Her grip tightened on the ledger, knuckles white. This wasn't just about justice for Ben anymore. This was a war. Amelia stood in Marcus's doorway, the soft glow of his nightlight casting long shadows across his peaceful face. He was sprawled across his bed, a textbook on robotics half closed on his chest, a testament to his vibrant, innocent world. A world Amelia was now tasked with protecting, even as it crumbled around them. The ledger, still open on the kitchen table, felt like a lead weight in her stomach. Exposing Thorne wasn't just dangerous. It was an act of war against a man deeply embedded in the city's power structure, a man who had already murdered once to protect his secrets. If she pushed, if she succeeded, what would be the cost? Her son, Marcus. The thought stole her breath. Ben had made her promise she'd always protect him, always keep him safe. But how could she protect him from an invisible enemy woven into the fabric of their city? An enemy whose reach was only now becoming terrifyingly clear. A silent tear tracked a path down her cheek. She was a teacher, not a soldier. But for Marcus, for Ben, she would learn. The park bench was cold beneath Amelia, but the mid-morning sun offered a deceptive warmth. She clutched her phone, her thumb hovering over Lena Torres's contact, Ben's former partner. A good cop, Ben had always said, but one who knew how to keep her head down. A risky call, but Amelia needed an ally, someone who understood the precinct's undercurrents. She took a deep breath and dialed. "Lena, it's Amelia Vance," she began, her voice carefully neutral. "I hope I'm not bothering you. I was just going through some of Ben's old things, and I found a few items I think might be precinct property. Old uniform buttons, a spare key. I was wondering if you knew what evidence locker keys looked like back in the day." There was a beat of silence on the other end. "Amelia." Lena's voice was tight, guarded. "It's probably just old junk. Don't worry about it. Let me know if you find anything that seems important, but honestly, it's best to just let sleeping dogs lie." The evasion was palpable, a tiny tremor in Lena's usually steady tone. It wasn't a denial. It was a warning. The faint scuff mark on the hardwood floor beneath the antique rug. The slightly askew copy of her favorite Toni Morrison novel on the bookshelf, its spine not quite flush with its neighbors. Amelia's heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She'd been so careful, so meticulous in her quiet, predictable life. But Thorne's people weren't quiet. They were thorough. The chill that had settled in her gut since discovering the ledger now spread, an icy tendril of fear clutching at her throat. They had been in her home. They had violated her sanctuary. Thorne wasn't just a name in a ledger. He was a presence, a shadow that had already fallen across her and Marcus. He knew. Or he suspected enough to send his hounds. Amelia stood perfectly still in the center of her living room, her breath held tight. The hunter had become the hunted, and the game had just begun. "Mom, check this out!" Marcus's voice, a mixture of triumph and solemnity, pulled Amelia from her terrified stillness. She found him hunched over Ben's old, encrypted laptop, its screen glowing with a familiar face. Ben. His eyes, usually so full of laughter, were serious, resolute. It was a video message, hidden deep within an encrypted folder Marcus had finally cracked. "If you're seeing this, Amelia, then something's gone wrong." Ben's voice, a ghost from the past, filled the room. "Thorne, he's deeper than I thought. He killed Jennifer Hayes, Amelia. I have proof, but I couldn't trust anyone at the precinct. This ledger, it's the key. I've been building a counter-network, leaving breadcrumbs. Protect Marcus. Expose him. My love, my mission, it's all in here." Amelia sank onto the chair beside Marcus, her hand finding his. Ben's face on the screen, his words a bittersweet confirmation of her worst fears and deepest hopes. He hadn't left her alone. He had left her a message. And a mission. The sharp rap on the door startled Amelia, making her drop the ledger onto the kitchen table. It was too late for visitors, too late for anything but the gnawing anxiety that had become her constant companion. Through the peephole, Captain Elias Thorne's face filled the frame, a smooth, practiced smile plastered across his lips. Amelia's heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The wolf came to her door, disguised as a friend. She took a deep breath, forcing her expression neutral, and opened the door a crack. "Captain Thorne! To what do I owe this surprise?" "Amelia, my dear," Thorne purred, his voice a low rumble. He leaned against the doorframe, his imposing figure filling the space, a too-perfect smile never quite reaching his eyes. "Just checking in. Heard you've been making inquiries at the precinct." A widow's grief can be a powerful thing, can lead one down paths they don't understand. His gaze, sharp and assessing, held hers. It was a warning, thinly veiled, a test of her resolve. Amelia met his eyes steadily, a cold steel forming in her gut. He thought he could intimidate her. He thought she was just a grieving widow. He was wrong. The next morning, Amelia walked into her high school classroom, the fluorescent lights harsh against her already strained eyes. She barely had time to greet her students before Principal Davies, a man usually too busy to acknowledge her existence, appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of stiff formality. "Miss Vance, a word, please." He led her into the empty hallway, his voice dropping to a low, clipped tone. "I've received reports, Amelia. Concerns about your focus, your stability since Ben's passing." He paused, his gaze pointedly flicking to the other teachers who were now openly staring. "We value our staff, of course, but we cannot have any distractions impacting our students. Perhaps a leave of absence would be prudent." Amelia's chest tightened with a searing anger. This wasn't about her performance. It was a public shaming, a thinly disguised threat. Thorne's influence. He was trying to discredit her, to make her seem irrational. She felt the humiliation burn, but beneath it, a defiant spark ignited. They tried to break her spirit, but they only fueled her fire. Amelia sat across from Lena Torres in a secluded corner of a dimly lit cafe that evening. Lena's hands trembled as she stirred her coffee, her eyes darting nervously around the room. The usual guarded professionalism was gone, replaced by raw fear. "Amelia, you need to be careful," Lena whispered, leaning closer. "Thorne, he's been asking about you, about Ben's old cases." "He knows," Amelia stated, her voice calm despite the tremor she felt inside. "He knows I found something." Lena nodded, her gaze fixed on her trembling hands. "Ben was onto something big, bigger than I realized. He tried to tell me, but I didn't listen. I was scared." Her voice cracked. "Thorne has too many people in his pocket. Judges, city council, half the precinct. He's untouchable." The words hit Amelia with the weight of confirmation. Ben hadn't been paranoid. He'd been right. Lena's fear was palpable, a chilling testament to Thorne's reach, but also a glimmer of hope. Lena was scared, but she was talking. The truth came from an unexpected source, but at what cost? Back at the apartment, Marcus, eyes gleaming with focus, replayed a segment of Ben's video message. "Look, Mom," the quiet hum of the old press, behind the broken drill. He pointed to a small, almost imperceptible detail in the background of the video, a faded outline on a wall in Ben's old workshop in the garage. Amelia and Marcus descended into the garage, dusty and filled with forgotten tools. Behind a stack of old tires, Marcus found it, a section of the wall that sounded hollow. With a crowbar, he carefully pried it open. The false wall slid aside with a soft rasp, revealing not a workshop, but a small, sophisticated room. Surveillance gear gleamed on a workbench, encrypted drives lay neatly stacked, and a detailed map of the city, dotted with glowing pins, covered one wall. Ben's sanctuary. Amelia felt a profound mix of awe and grief. Her husband had built a fortress, not just a home. He was still protecting them. Inside Ben's hidden safe room, Amelia and Marcus stood before the illuminated map. It was a web, intricate and chilling. Glowing pins marked not only the locations of Thorne's corrupt network, the judges, the councilmen, the dubious businesses, but also Ben's own counter-network. Tiny camera icons blinked. Dead drop locations were highlighted, and coded names hinted at potential contacts Ben had cultivated. "He wasn't just collecting evidence, Mom," Marcus breathed, his voice filled with a new maturity. "He was building an entire system, a plan." Amelia traced a line connecting a hidden camera in a city hall office to a secure server. Ben had been playing a long game, meticulously laying traps. The odds still felt overwhelming, but looking at the intricate blueprint of her husband's genius, Amelia felt a surge of defiant power. Her husband's legacy wasn't just evidence, it was a blueprint for war. Her husband's ghost was watching, and so were they. The hum of Ben's safe room was a low thrum against Amelia's skin, a constant reminder of the secrets it held. Late into the night, Marcus, a natural with the intricate tech, navigated the glowing interfaces. Guided by Ben's cryptic notes, he began to activate the hidden digital eyes and ears Ben had meticulously planted. Static flickered across the multiple monitors, then resolved into grainy, silent footage. A coffee shop corner, a discreet office, the sterile hallway outside Captain Thorne's office. "These are live feeds, Mom," Marcus whispered, his voice hushed with the exhilarating power of their discovery. "Microphones, too. Ben set up a whole network." Amelia's chest tightened. This felt like a profound invasion, a moral tightrope walk. But the cold memory of Ben's video message, his plea for justice, steadied her. "He knew," she murmured, watching a silent Thorne on one screen, his back to the camera. He knew this was the only way. The city's pillars were built on lies. Amelia and Marcus watched, disgusted, as Thorne's corrupt world unspooled before them. On one monitor, Thorne, his arrogant smile a familiar mask, met with Councilman Davis in a dimly lit restaurant booth. Davis, a man who campaigned on, quote, community values, accepted a thick envelope, his eyes darting around nervously before settling back into a practiced calm. On another screen, a judge, robed and revered, took a hurried phone call from Thorne, his tone deferential, almost subservient. Payoffs, cover-ups, whispered threats. The ledger's chilling details were brought to life, confirming the rot that festered beneath the city's facade. Marcus gasped, his young face pale. He's everywhere, Mom!" Amelia's jaw tightened, a cold anger settling deep within her. This wasn't just about Ben anymore. This was about Jennifer Hayes, about every innocent life crushed beneath Thorne's ambition. And she would not let it stand. They needed a scapegoat, and an innocent man paid the price. Days later, back in their apartment, Amelia and Marcus watched a local news report. The anchor's grave face announced the arrest of Officer David Miller, a decorated veteran, on corruption charges. Sources close to the investigation suggest a deep-seated betrayal of public trust, the reporter intoned. Amelia clenched her fists, her knuckles white. Miller wasn't Lena. He wasn't one of Thorne's loyalists. He was a decent cop, a family man. This was a classic Thorne maneuver, a sacrificial lamb offered to distract from the true scale of his corruption. "This is wrong, Mom," Marcus said, his voice tight with disbelief. "He's just throwing him under the bus." Amelia nodded, her gaze fixed on the news anchor's carefully neutral expression. Thorne wasn't just a killer, he was a manipulator, a puppeteer pulling strings to protect his empire. Some lines can't be uncrossed, some truths can't be ignored. Amelia knew she couldn't sit idly by. Using a secure line from a discreet public hotspot, she called Lena. "Did you see the news?" Amelia asked, her voice calm despite the fury churning within. A pause. Lena's voice, when it came, was strained. "I did. It's a mess, Amelia." Miller didn't deserve this. No, he didn't. And neither did Ben. Or Jennifer Hayes. Amelia let the names hang in the air, a silent challenge. Lena was visibly shaken. Amelia could hear the tremor in her words. I know what Ben was doing, Amelia. I heard things. Thorne's got too many people scared, too many people bought. Are you scared, Lena? Amelia pushed, her voice soft but firm. Another long pause. Yes, Lena admitted, her voice barely a whisper. But I'm more scared of what happens if I do nothing. Ben, he always said there was a line. I think I just crossed it. Amelia felt a surge of grim hope. Good. Because I need your help. Real help. Things only you would know. Lena hesitated for a moment longer. Then, a resolute sigh. What do you need? The rules of the game just changed. The alleyway was a canvas of inky shadows, a fitting backdrop for their clandestine meeting. Amelia huddled deeper into her coat, the chill of the late-night air biting at her exposed skin. Lena appeared from the darkness, a wraith in the gloom, her eyes darting nervously. No words of greeting, just a quick, furtive movement. Burner phone, Lena whispered, pressing a sleek device into Amelia's hand. Secured app. And this. A USB drive, small and unremarkable, followed. Internal reports Ben was trying to access. Thorne buried them deep. They prove Jennifer Hayes wasn't just a missing person, Amelia. She was silenced. Lena's voice was hoarse with suppressed emotion. Amelia clutched the items, their weight suddenly immense. "Thank you, Lena." Lena merely nodded, her gaze sweeping the alley once more. "Be careful, Amelia. Thorne knows you're digging. He's not a man who tolerates loose ends." With that, she melted back into the shadows, leaving Amelia alone with the heavy burden of new truths and a profound sense of shared risk. The shrill shriek of tearing wood ripped through the quiet night, followed by the sickening thud of a door giving way. Amelia's heart seized. "Marcus," she hissed, grabbing her son's arm. They'd been reviewing Ben's old case files, the ledger still clutched in her hand, when the first faint sounds of intrusion had reached them. Now, it was undeniable. Heavy boots thudded in the hallway, harsh voices barking orders. Thorne's men, they had come. "Mom, what do we do?" Marcus's voice was a terrified whisper, his eyes wide. Amelia pulled him towards the garage, her mind racing. Ben's safe room. It was their only chance. The hidden panel behind the false wall felt impossibly slow to open, as the sounds of their apartment being ransacked grew louder. A crash from the living room, glass shattering. They were tearing her home apart, searching for the truth Ben had hidden. Just as the wall slid open, revealing the dark, cool passage, a man's silhouette filled the garage doorway, a flashlight beam sweeping wildly. "In, Marcus! Now!" Amelia shoved her son through, scrambling after him, just as the beam caught her. The panel hissed shut, plunging them into darkness, the sounds of destruction muffled but still terrifyingly present. They came for her, but she had a secret weapon. The air in the safe room was thick with the scent of old electronics and Amelia's own fear. Marcus huddled beside her, his breathing shallow. Then her burner phone, a gift from Lena, vibrated in her hand. The caller ID flashed. Unknown. She knew. "It's him," she whispered, her fingers shaking as she answered. "Hello, Victoria. Darling." Thorne's voice, smooth and laced with false concern, echoed through the small room, amplified by Ben's communication tech. "I hope you weren't planning to run away without saying goodbye. That would be terribly rude considering how much the family cares about you." Amelia's jaw tightened. He knew. He always knew. But she wouldn't give him the satisfaction. "I don't know what you mean, Captain," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. On a monitor, Ben's hidden surveillance feed from Thorne's office flickered to life, showing Thorne's arrogant, self-satisfied smile. "Oh, I think you do. You see, when certain sensitive information goes missing, and a widowed teacher starts asking too many questions, it makes us worry. We're concerned about your mental state, Amelia. Grief can make people do irrational things." The threat was clear, despite the pleasant tone. Amelia met his gaze on the screen, her poker face a mask of calm. "My mental state is perfectly clear, Captain, and I assure you I'm not irrational." She watched his eyes, noting the subtle shift when she mentioned his title, the faint flicker of annoyance. He thought he had won, but she was playing a different game. Amelia cut the call, her hand trembling, not from fear, but from a cold, righteous anger. "He thinks he has us cornered," she muttered, looking at Marcus. "But Ben built this place for a reason." Marcus, his initial terror slowly giving way to focus, was already at the main console. "He said he put in safeguards, Mom. If anyone tried to track his digital footprint, it would trigger a countermeasure." His fingers flew across the keyboard, a flurry of commands. Screens around them flashed, lines of code scrolling rapidly. "Activating Ben's digital defense protocols," Marcus announced, his voice gaining a triumphant edge. "Disrupting all known surveillance channels linked to the precinct network. Scrambling their comms. Sending false GPS pings." On the surveillance monitors, the figures of Thorne's men in her apartment suddenly froze. Then their body cameras glitched into static. They started looking around, confused, radios crackling with unintelligible noise. Amelia felt a surge of pride, a teenager's revenge, hacking the system from within. "Good, Marcus. Amelia said, a plan forming in her mind. Now, let's give them something else to chase. She pointed to a section of Ben's digital map, a network of abandoned warehouses on the city's industrial outskirts. Can you broadcast a signal, make it look like our phones are pinging from here? A strong, undeniable signal. Marcus nodded, already typing. Fake cell tower triangulation, Mom? Easy. He initiated the command, and on the map, a glowing red dot began to move rapidly towards the industrial zone. A perfect digital decoy. Through Ben's external cameras, they watched Thorne's men scramble, abandoning their futile search of her apartment. They piled into black SUVs, tires screeching as they sped away, following the phantom signal. Amelia watched them go, a grim satisfaction settling in her gut. She wasn't running. She was setting a trap. Hours later, as the digital chaos Marcus had unleashed continued to sow confusion, a faint click echoed from the hidden passage leading into the safe room. Amelia and Marcus tensed, their eyes on the entrance. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows. Lena. Her uniform was disheveled, her face etched with exhaustion and fear, but her eyes held a fierce determination. Amelia? She gasped, collapsing onto a nearby bench. Ben, he left clues. For me. A sequence of dates, places we'd worked together. I figured it out. She pulled out a worn notebook, similar to Ben's, filled with cryptic notes. Thorne's tightening his grip. He's already framed 2 more officers. But Ben's files, the ones he couldn't access, I got them. And I've got names. Names of more judges, city officials, even some from the mayor's office. Amelia reached out, grasping Lena's hand. You made it, Lena. You're safe. Lena squeezed back, her gaze unwavering. Safe isn't enough, Amelia. Justice is. The fight for justice just gained a new soldier. The safe room hummed with a renewed, focused energy. Marcus, hunched over Ben's main console, was a whirlwind of motion, his fingers flying across the holographic displays. Lena, a seasoned detective now fully committed, fed him data from her burner phone, Ben's ledger open on a secondary screen. Amelia watched them, a complex digital map of Northwood City, glowing on the largest monitor. Every lie, every bribe, every dirty secret, now laid bare. Okay, Lena's intel confirms the meeting points for the anonymous donations in Ben's ledger, Marcus announced, lines of code snapping into place on the map. Cross-referencing with the surveillance logs, boom, Thorne, Councilman Davies, Judge Albright. Caught on camera, discussing the payouts and the cover-up for the Jennifer Hayes case. Amelia leaned closer, her eyes scanning the intricate web of connections. Each glowing pin on the map represented a piece of Thorne's empire, a life corrupted, a truth buried. He didn't just murder Jennifer, Amelia murmured, a cold fire burning in her chest. He built his entire career on her silence, and then he killed Ben for trying to expose it. Lena nodded grimly. It's all here, Amelia, the whole rotten system. Her weapon wasn't a gun. It was the truth. Amelia straightened, a new resolve hardening her features. This isn't just about Thorne anymore. It's about every single person he's implicated, every life he's ruined. She tapped a series of commands on the console, bringing up mock-up news headlines and social media feeds. We need to hit them where they live. Public opinion. Lena frowned, her police instincts kicking in. You want to leak it? That's dangerous, Amelia. Thorne has people everywhere. He'll bury it, or worse, trace it back to us. Not if we're smart, Amelia replied, her voice calm but firm. Ben built this network to bypass conventional channels. We'll use encrypted dead drops, anonymous servers, and feed the most damning evidence to an independent investigative journalist, known for their integrity and fearlessness. Someone Thorne can't buy, intimidate, or control. We flood the system, make it impossible for him to suppress. She looked at Marcus. Can you scrub the metadata, make it untraceable? Marcus grinned, the familiar spark returning to his eyes. Consider it done, Mom. They won't even know where the first domino came from. The first domino fell quietly, almost imperceptibly. A small independent blog picked up an anonymous tip, linking a minor city official to suspicious real estate deals. Then another, hinting at irregularities in a judicial ruling. Amelia, Marcus, and Lena watched from the safe room as Thorne's carefully constructed facade began to crack. On one of the surveillance feeds, Thorne was a red-faced blur, slamming his phone down on his desk. He barked orders into another, his smooth, authoritative voice replaced by a desperate snarl. "Find out where this is coming from, now!" "He's panicking," Lena observed, a grim satisfaction in her tone. "These are small fry, but he knows what they represent, a breach in his control." Amelia nodded, her gaze fixed on Thorne's agitated figure. "He's a man who thrives on control. Uncertainty is his kryptonite." The mighty captain was beginning to crumble, his arrogance giving way to fear. It was a sweet, cold vindication, watching the puppet master suddenly realize his strings were being cut, one by one. This was Ben's silent work, amplified by their actions. The dam didn't just break, it exploded. The investigative journalist, a woman named Cassandra Reed, held a live press conference. On the safe room's main monitor, her face was stern, her voice resolute as she presented Ben's ledger, the surveillance footage of Thorne's meetings, and the irrefutable proof of Jennifer Hayes' murder. The city erupted in outrage. News anchors, once oblivious, now blared headlines of corruption. Citizens flooded social media demanding justice. Images of Thorne, once a symbol of authority, were now juxtaposed with the face of Jennifer Hayes, a tragic reminder of his crimes. Amelia watched, a quiet satisfaction settling over her. Marcus beside her looked up, his young face alight with pride. "Dad would have loved this," he whispered. "He would," Amelia agreed, a tear tracing a path down her cheek, not of sorrow but of profound relief. This wasn't just revenge. It was the truth finally seeing the light. This was justice, raw and undeniable. Thorne's empire, built on lies and blood, was collapsing under the weight of its own rot. The truth exploded, and no one was safe. Lena's burner phone buzzed, cutting through the stunned silence of the safe room. She answered, her expression shifting from grim satisfaction to professional relief. Yes, I understand. We're ready." She hung up, her eyes meeting Amelia's. "Federal authorities," Lena confirmed, her voice steady. "They've issued an arrest warrant for Captain Elias Thorne and his key associates. They're bypassing local channels. A task force is en route." "It's over, Amelia." Amelia felt her knees weaken, a wave of exhaustion washing over her. She gripped Marcus's hand, a profound, gut-deep emotion blooming in her chest. It was over. The net was closing, and justice was finally coming. Ben's sacrifice, Jennifer's forgotten story, her own terrifying journey, it all culminated in this moment. Amelia's vision blurred, a tearful smile gracing her lips. Ben's safe room hummed with the quiet intensity of a command center. On the main monitor, Captain Elias Thorne's face, usually so smooth and controlled, was a mask of enraged disbelief. He was watching a news report, a local journalist, emboldened by Amelia's anonymous leaks, tearing into the precinct's integrity. Thorne slammed his fist on his desk, a distant camera feed trembling with the impact. "He's losing it," Lena murmured, her eyes glued to the screen. Amelia nodded, a cold resolve settling in her chest. The partial leaks had worked. Thorne had taken the bait. He was abandoning his official duties. His frantic calls to his cronies, confirming his fear. The trail of corruption led straight back to Amelia Vance. He was coming for her, not with official procedure, but with the desperate fury of a cornered animal seeking to eliminate the threat. "He's leaving the precinct," Marcus reported, his fingers flying across the keyboard, tracking Thorne's vehicle with Ben's hidden GPS. "Direct route to our apartment." Lena's hand instinctively went to her sidearm. "He's not coming for answers, Amelia. He's coming to finish it." Amelia met her gaze, a spark of defiance in her eyes. "Good, because we're ready." He was coming for her, but she was ready. Amelia's apartment, once a haven of peace, now felt like a stage set for a deadly play. She moved with a teacher's precision, directing Lena and Marcus. "Lena, position yourself here." Amelia instructed, pointing to a strategic alcove hidden by a heavy curtain. "You'll have a clear line of sight to the living room entrance." "Marcus, activate the secondary recording devices. We need every word, every move." Marcus, quick and efficient, wired a discreet microphone into a lamp and nudged a tiny lens on a bookshelf camera. Ben's foresight was their greatest weapon. Every piece of furniture, every electrical outlet, seemed to hold a hidden purpose. Amelia herself set up motion sensors near the front door, linking them to a subtle chime only they would hear. Her hands were steady, her mind sharp. There was no room for fear now, only strategy. This wasn't just her home, it was a fortress, and Thorn was about to walk into its trap. The hunter was about to become the hunted. The chime was barely audible, a soft whisper that cut through the apartment's tense silence. Thorn. Amelia took a deep breath, smoothing her shirt. She stood in the center of the living room, Ben's ledger tucked securely in a hidden pocket, her face a serene mask. The front door burst open, splintering the frame. Captain Elias Thorn strode in, his eyes blazing with a dangerous mix of fury and desperation. "Amelia," he snarled, his voice low and menacing. "Where is it? Where's Ben's little ledger?" He glanced around the seemingly empty room, his gaze sweeping over the very spots where hidden cameras blinked red, silently recording. "What ledger, Captain?" Amelia asked, her voice calm, almost conversational, a stark contrast to his rage. "The one detailing your bribes? Your payoffs? The one that explains why Jennifer Hayes disappeared?" Thorn froze, his eyes widening. You don't know anything." He lunged forward, but Amelia stood her ground. "I know everything, Elias. And now, so will everyone else." He grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. "You think you can take me down, a little schoolteacher? I'll make sure you disappear, just like Jennifer. Just like Ben." His confession, spoken in a moment of unchecked rage, hung in the air, captured by Ben's meticulously placed microphones. He walked into her trap and sealed his own fate. "Captain Thorn, drop your weapon!" Lena's voice, sharp and authoritative, cut through the tension. She emerged from behind the curtain, her service pistol aimed squarely at Thorn. He spun around, disbelief warring with his fury. Just then, the front door, already damaged, was forced open again. Federal agents, clad in tactical gear, stormed the apartment, their movements swift and decisive. Thorn, still holding Amelia's arm, was quickly subdued. He struggled, shouting obscenities, but it was useless. Handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists. "You think this changes anything?" he roared, his eyes fixed on Amelia. "You're dead! Both of you!" Lena stepped forward, her expression grim. "It changes everything, Captain. You're under arrest. For corruption, obstruction, and the murder of Officer Ben Carter." Amelia watched, Marcus rushing to her side, their hands finding each other. The weight of months, years, lifted from her shoulders. Justice served. The corrupt captain finally falls. The apartment, now secured and cleared of Thorn's lingering menace, was bathed in the soft glow of morning sunlight. Amelia, Marcus, and Lena sat together, mugs of lukewarm tea in their hands. Exhaustion etched lines on Amelia's face, but a quiet, profound satisfaction radiated from her. Lena's phone buzzed. She answered, her responses brief and professional. Hanging up, she looked at Amelia. "Thorn's talking. Everything's unraveling. They're moving on the city councilman and the judge." Amelia simply nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. The fight was over. For now. The fight was over, but the legacy had just begun. 6 months had passed, yet the federal courtroom still hummed with a tension Amelia knew would forever be etched into her memory. Captain Elias Thorn, once a towering figure of authority and corruption, now sat a shrunken, pale man, his eyes devoid of their former arrogant gleam. Amelia sat beside Marcus, their hands clasped, Lena Torres on her other side, a silent pillar of professional satisfaction. The judge's voice, a steady, measured cadence, delivered the final pronouncements. Conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, financial fraud. The list was long, the sentences harsher. Thorn, along with his network of crooked councilmen and judges, received decades, effectively life. As the gavel fell, a collective sigh rippled through the gallery. Amelia watched Thorn's defeated face, a flicker of something akin to pity, quickly extinguished by the memory of Ben's last, desperate message. Justice, raw and uncompromising, had been served. The villains faced their reckoning, but the story wasn't over. The scent of fresh paint and possibility filled the air of the new office space. Sunlight streamed through large windows, illuminating a framed photograph of Ben, his kind eyes smiling from a bygone era. Amelia stood before a small gathering, her voice strong and clear. Ben believed in integrity, in protecting the innocent, no matter the cost. The illicit funds recovered from Thorne's network, meticulously traced and reclaimed by federal agents, now formed the bedrock of the Ben Carter Foundation for Integrity. Its mission: to fight systemic corruption, support whistleblowers, and empower communities. Lena, now a key advisor, stood proudly beside Amelia, while Marcus, a natural at tech, already had a bank of monitors displaying the Foundation's outreach programs. "This isn't just about Ben," Amelia continued. "It's about every Ben out there, every person who stands for what's right when it's easier to look away." Her husband's memory became a force for good, a beacon in the ongoing fight. Later that evening, in the quiet comfort of their modest apartment, Amelia and Marcus sat on the sofa, the sunset painting the living room in hues of orange and purple. The chaos and terror of the past months felt like a distant nightmare, replaced by a profound peace. Marcus, no longer just a boy, but a young man forged in the crucible of extraordinary circumstances, leaned against her. "Dad would be proud, Mom," he said softly, his voice carrying a newfound maturity. Amelia wrapped an arm around him, pulling him close. "He would be, but he'd be even prouder of you, Marcus. For your courage, your brilliance, for helping me see his plan through." She pressed a kiss to his hair. "He loved us so much, son, enough to prepare us for everything." The quiet strength of a family rebuilt, stronger and more connected than ever. Back at the Foundation office, long after everyone else had left, Amelia sat at her desk, the only light coming from her laptop. She picked up Ben's original locker key, small and unassuming, yet so heavy with destiny. It had been the catalyst, the first domino in a chain of events that had shattered her world and then rebuilt it stronger. She traced the worn ridges of the brass. This simple piece of metal hadn't just unlocked a physical locker. It had unlocked a hidden truth, a buried legacy, and a strength within herself she hadn't known existed. "Everyone has a key," she whispered to the empty office, her gaze fixed on the symbol in her hand. A key to their own truth, their own power. Her journey had taught her that. Now the Foundation's purpose was to help others find theirs. The key that changed her life could change countless others. The next morning, Amelia drove to a struggling community center across town. She watched from her car as a weary-looking community advocate, a woman with fire in her eyes but exhaustion etched on her face, spoke passionately to a small group. Amelia knew that look. It was her own reflection from months ago. She approached discreetly, leaving a thick envelope on the advocate's makeshift desk when no one was looking. Inside, a substantial check from the Ben Carter Foundation and a simple handwritten note. "Find your key. You're stronger than you know." As Amelia walked away, she glanced back. The advocate had found the envelope, her tired eyes widening, a spark of hope igniting. Amelia smiled. Ben's spirit, his unwavering belief in justice and the power of ordinary people, lived on. Sometimes, the smallest act of courage can change the world.